Well, I have 10 o'clock exactly. And I apologize, I'm looking squarely at Pat Bone to keep me, as she has for the last 2 or 3 weeks, help keep me honest. And Pat, should we thank you for Fleetwood Mac? I don't know. Who, okay, well, thank you. Sent me down a mental rabbit hole of trying to figure out I think that was probably 1975. I'm sorry, I get sidetracked pretty easily with music. And I think that was their second self-titled album. Anyway, enough of that. Thank you. And my name is Scott Smith, if you don't know, and I'm gonna run you, and I'm looking at the faces here because I think the commissioner is going to join us. So help me if someone happens to see him, and I'll invite Randy just to step in. I have a few introductory statements to go through just before we get going. Up, Randy, he's here, smiley face. He may know specifically about Fleetwood Mac more. He's probably the person. Randy, did you have any updates you'd like to give everyone, or some well wishes?
Well, yeah, thanks, Scott. First, are you wanting me to give you the whole history then of the Fleetwood Mac album repertoire? Probably not, but it was, when you're a child of the 70s, rumors is a major part of your life. Let's just put that out there. First of all, thank you. What a wonderful year you guys have all had, right? Up and down, but man, you're finishing strong. We've got a lot of great things going on. It's because of the work that you're doing. And I want to give this specific shout out. We've asked Dr. Scott Smith to do a lot here over the next several months. He's wearing a lot of hats, and I just want to publicly thank him for doing that as we're awaiting a transition that'll happen this summer. So Scott, thank you. And if he looks a little tired, it's because as I said, we've got him wearing a lot of hats. So thank you for taking time to join. We really hope, and I know that as we plan for this next year, we're going to be back in person. And while that means driving, time for everyone, it also means time, I think, where we really can have those side conversations about, tell me how you're doing that in your school, and how we're making that take place. So I just want to say hello. I have no formal part of the agenda today. I'm going to listen in as much as I can and learn from all of you. For those that have some teachers going tomorrow to our first of what will be 9 total over the next 3 years, Kansas Leads Conference, I can't wait to spend time with over 200 Kansas educators. For those that don't know what I'm talking about, we've given some money to our teachers in Kansas to do staff development over the next 3 years. And all you have to do is tell your teachers to nominate themselves. Go to Kansas Leads and nominate themselves. And we would love to have them learning from each other. So thanks again for being here. Thanks for a wonderful school year. I'm also scanning around, seeing who's on the screen, and it is good to see so many of you in your smiling face. So thanks, Scott. Again, thanks for all of your work. And I look forward to listening to the conversation.
Okay, to unmute myself. So let's see. So I just like reading to people. I mean, we can all do that. So I'm going to try to breeze through this pretty quickly, Pat. Today's agenda, you've got a few updates from me. We're going to hear from Michelle again, as she alluded to earlier. She's got some more information. Then we have a Kisa redesign accreditation and design team update, teacher leader program, a little bit about letters training, and then Amanda Peterson is going to help close out things with kindergarten readiness, and then some dates for the future. So, and I have the happy occasion, the happy opportunity today to introduce Dr. Ben Proctor, who will begin as the new Deputy Commissioner July 1st, 2022. He's currently Superintendent of Heston. Prior to being named Superintendent, he served middle school principal in Heston, high school principal in Cherokee, taught and coached in other districts. He earned his doctorate from Wichita State, and Bachelor of History from McPherson College, and Master's, as you can see there, from Baker. So we are elated to have him join us, and he's going to be, as scheduling permits, he's going to be dropping in, helping us between now and then. So we are really happy that he's going to be joining us, and in July. A couple of specific things, kind of clunky things. The student, so we're really changing gears here. The student demographics are currently available on, they have been removed from K-12 reports and the report card. And the reason they have been removed is we need to, we've got some things we need to fix with the suppression rules. And this is sort of behind the scenes coding. So if you have any questions at all about obtaining any of your, I'll just say the demographic information, by all means, let me know. Kelly Spurgeon here on our research and evaluation team has gotten a number of calls, and we're going to try to push out. We don't want to create questions where we don't want to create questions, but we also want to help people not get stuck if they're looking for that. So if you have any questions about how to get that data, just let us know. And I'm going to talk about Summer Academies today and the Special Education Entitled Services Leadership Conference. So what are we doing with Summer Academies? Well, just very generally, as you can see there, we've got 4 dates or 4 events: June 7th and 8th, June 21st through 22nd, July 12th through the 13th, and then we have a virtual offering. And we're putting a lot of, what am I trying to say? Some promotional energy behind this. And I'll go through in the next slide, I'll go through the various sessions that we're trying to hit. And let's see here. Yep, there they are. So as you can see there, at administration, leadership, career and technical ed, early childhood, English language arts and dyslexia, people who attend can go wherever they want to go. But we are making this offering. And as you can see there, we've got, we're having dedicated sessions for special education, which is kind of new for us this year. But we're trying to respond as best we can to all the needs in the schools as at least we are aware. So maybe the next slide. Okay, Special Education Entitled Service Leadership Conference. Another thing that we're promoting as best we can, certainly internally as well. The 2022 KSDE TASA Leadership Conference is designed for all Kansas education administrators. If you have oversight responsibility for SPED, school improvement, title services, or early childhood, this is the conference for you. Provide updated information to attendees regarding district requirements and how to support your staff to ensure positive student outcomes. So if you have any questions over that, again, give us a call. The registration to attend is, as you can see there, $300, and visit the website for more information. I'll go back and say for the Summer Academies, the registration fee was $50, if you didn't catch that. Yep, thanks. Sorry, Pat. Threw you a curve there. Let's see, is that it? Meetings will, this is a big one. Meetings will be planned for in-person events, 9 a.m. to 3 in September. Is that correct, Pat? Do we have a location?
We do not have locations yet. I haven't started working on that, but I have reserved dates so that we can put them on calendars. Awesome.
Okay. I think it'd be good to meet in person. It's been a long while, so that'll be a good thing. And Ben will be here by that time. So I think that'll be a nice way to kick off his arrival. So I think with that, And I'm looking at the chat. I see a number of links dumped in there, so thank you. With that, we turn it to, let's see, who's on first, Pat?
Me. I think it's me, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay, Pat, can you see my screen? The PowerPoint? Anybody? Anyone?
Yes, ma'am, we can see it.
Okay, good. Thank you. I always just want to have some verification from the crowd. Good morning, everyone. My name is Michelle Miller. I'm the Director of Teacher Licensure, taking over some new responsibilities with higher ed accreditation. Just as a sidebar, for those of you who don't know, and I didn't know this particularly when I was in the field, the agency accredits the unit within the University of Kansas or Pittsburgh State that prepares teachers. Does that make sense? So all of the programs in Kansas that prepare educators to go into the world of Kansas and be great educators run through an accreditation process with our office. And my good friend, Dr. Catherine Schmidling, manages, my friends, over 430 different kinds of programs that lead to either an initial license, a new license, et cetera. And I'm going to really be transitioning into some work there. But today, what I want to give you is just some basic information from the licensure office across the hallway, and talk to you about some of resources that are available to you. I'm going to provide you a slide in the end that gives you direct contact to who you need to work with on certain licensure issues. So in the world of licensure, if you are hiring a new graduate, either in December or in May, if there appears to be delay on that, that is because we're waiting on the university that the candidate just finished their degree from to check the box that says they indeed did complete a degree program with their particular university. So that can cause a delay on those first Form 1 initial licenses. Fingerprint and background really moves pretty quickly. I tell people 5 to 7 business days, but oftentimes it's less than that. So just be patient on those Form 1 new graduate initial licenses. To that end, also with initial licenses, I use my daughter Emma as an example. She was hired in January, but didn't get into an official mentoring program, stay with me folks, till the following August. That's a 2-year license. She needed a 2.5-year license before she was going to qualify from the initial to the professional. So our office offers extensions on those candidates who need just a little bit more time. All right. I wanted you to know that, to be aware of that, and to not panic, and try not to let that new candidate panic either, because we don't want them to kind of freak out over that. I don't think I'm going to take the time to take you to the Kansas Educator Code of Conduct brochure, but I will make sure that Pat has this. She probably already has it posted on our website. What that is a beautiful document that lays out a conversation I think we all need to be having with our new to the profession candidates. It is Kansas's adopted code of conduct for educators. It covers 3 very big topics. And I think it's worth your time to really sit down as a leader and intentionally have a conversation with them about that document. Being an educator is full of a great deal of responsibility. I tell people all the time, it's the greatest profession in the world, but it's also full of a great lot of responsibility. So be sure that you are taking the time to love on those newbies to our profession, share with them the high expectations that our state has and that we have on them for their time in front of kiddos. And my latest mantra is retention is the new recruitment. So when you love on them, wrap around them, do everything you can to keep them involved in your system, that's the new recruitment, right? Retention is your new recruitment. Okay, take a deep breath here. Professional development and mentoring plans. This is an area of compliance for your accreditation process. My good friend Ed Kalis is in that role for monitoring the compliance issues relative to your 5-year PD plans and your mentoring plans. Several of you may have heard from Ed. If you had any issues in that area of compliance, you would know by now. So if you haven't heard, no need to email and say, hey, how about me? Just realize you are okay. If you've been working with Ed, you are still in compliance, okay? So if he is working with you on becoming compliant in either one of these areas, you are compliant. And again, you would know if you were not by this point. He comes to us from the public world. He comes to us in monitoring compliance from the public world. So he is phenomenal at helping me provide clarity for you all, because I have the educator lingo and he'll say, I have no clue what you mean. So he has been a wonderful asset to the licensure, mentoring, and professional development area that he is filling. He will begin for us a new licensure professional development mentoring plan newsletter in May. And if you want to be on his listserv, there's his email. Throw him an email and let him know. We you know, those listservs are interesting. They're our best place of communication for y'all, but really we could inundate them, and we're trying to be really intentional and not doing that, and try to get the specific information to where it needs to go. So contact Ed if you have questions there, and put anything you have in the chat. And when I'm finished with my presentation, I have nowhere to be but with you all, so I'm happy to answer those things. The mentor programs, here's some submission date information. My friends, pay close attention to the qualifications for the mentor and the mentee. The mentor and the mentee, they both have very clear qualifications. And if your reporting system about those two educators doesn't match those qualifications, you're not going to get the stipend. And we have folks who call in and say, hey, I have a mentor or mentee situation. Well, your mentor only had 2 years of experience. They're not going to qualify. Do you see what I'm saying? The state grants us a pot of money, and only so much money. They don't really ask how many we have. They say, here's your money. And some years we're able to fund the second opportunity for that mentor-mentee relationship that we know is so valuable, but we will do it based on those very strict qualifications. And if you all don't report it correctly, once that closes, I can't help you. And sometimes I've learned in this job, the answer is no. So just be aware of that when you're matching up your new mentors and your mentees, etc. Again, happy to answer questions about that piece. I didn't put this in presentation mode, so I apologize for that. Okay, look at this. Look at these licensure contacts, my friends. The exciting thing that's happening in licensure, when my good friend Sarah Perryman goes to apply for her license, it's going to turn over so fast. When she fills out her stuff and she submits all her documentation online, she'll have that license, if it's complete, I'm telling you, within 7 days. In many cases, it's 1 to 3 days. So thank you to Dr. Watson, to Kathy Grossenbacher, who is our IT person. Many kudos to my good friend Shane Carter. He has done a phenomenal job at leading this opportunity for the agency to really build a smarter, quicker, faster licensure system for Kansas only. Vendors call me regularly and say, boy, have I got a deal for you. And I say, no, thank you. We're doing it in-house and we are just fine. So to that end, Shane in his assistant director role, if you have unique situations, for example, I have a welder in town who wants to come and teach our kids welding. You call Shane. Have a local chef who wants to come and teach. Those are the unique kinds of situations that you want to talk to Shane about. There's his email. Diana, many of you know Diana. She is our out of state, out of country, 100% expert. She handles unique situations, and she's also well-versed in career and technical education. Krista Chesmore and Myra Stitham, phenomenal renewal for my good friend Sarah Perryman. Initial licenses and upgrades. Krista and Myra are your contacts. Joe Migley, he is working in close contact with Catherine on higher ed relationship building, and also has taken over the work on our restricted transition program. limited apprentice license and the teacher apprentice program that is part of Wichita State's programming. All right. So Joe is a great resource to you as well. When you've exhausted those spaces, I'm here available 100% of the time, but I will tell you, my staff says, stay out of it, because I have a tendency to say yes, maybe when I shouldn't, and then they have to clean up my mess later on. So when you've exhausted or you feel like something is taking a long time, reach out to me. There's our general TLA license email as well. So you can always email there. And I'm going to take a deep breath, because y'all know I go 90-0, and talk to you for one moment, backing up to professional learning. And again, please put all your licensure questions in there. I see that they're coming and I will answer them. We need to be rethinking the idea of professional learning for our educators. They can sit at home on a Friday night at 8 o'clock and zip through Twitter or zip through some phenomenal teacher tube, whatever, and get on-demand learning for free, right? So we need to be thinking about how we're supporting these new models. They're not new, but the new way of learning, you're right, you know, in creative and innovative ways that we can give credit for them, that they're using those professional learning opportunities. We do have a particular university, not in Kansas, a university in Idaho, offering college credit to basically reflect on your past experiences during COVID. I'm a little deep in the weeds here, Dr. Smith, so forgive me just a minute, but at your local professional development council level, you all need to be talking about the fact, is that quality learning? I mean, I love reflective practice. I think we all should do it. But is that effective learning that helps us grow and change in our current practice? I don't know. So watch for, I'm not telling you I'm making any decisions on this right now, but if you're seeing some of those kinds of things coming through to your teachers and your teachers are saying, hey, can I do this? Hey, can I do that? Be really intentional about saying, I don't know, but I will get back to you. You don't always have to give an immediate answer. And that's what we're doing with this Idaho State opportunity. We're really trying to talk about what professional learning looks like in Kansas and how do we honor that in a different way. So watch for future communication on that particular piece. So that being said, I will stop my share. I will take a look around in the chat, and I am happy to let you all answer, you know, unmute or whatever, and I'll answer in the minute any questions you might have. My internet seems a little off today too, so. Okay, I will take a look at the chat, and Pat has these slides and she will get them posted.
Thank you, Michelle. So next up on our agenda is Kisa Redesign Accreditation and Design Team. Take it away.
Hi, everyone. Jeanette Novo. Many of you know me, Assistant Director for Kisa. I am going to start off the presentation by just giving you some general updates on Kisa. It is primarily those kind of questions that have been coming up recently, calls, emails, etc. From this past semester to now. As you know, we're on the time where we end up doing all the visits, and it's year 5. We have 92 systems that are being accredited. So there's a lot of questions and a lot of concerns that come up, and I would like to share that with you. So let's go ahead and just start off with some of the beginning pieces. Thank you. Most of the frequent questions that we're getting are that the response boxes do not take the full response. People believe that 8,000, when we say 8,000 characters, it means 8,000 words. It is 8,000 characters. If the response is too long, you haven't been concise enough, I think, it's kind of what I want to say. get a little bit concerned with very long responses. More information doesn't always make good responses. But on the other hand, I know that sometimes they're trying to put charts and pictures in it. Those things need to be placed in the artifact section with some indication of, please find evidence for this in the artifacts and what the name of the artifact is. That would be the best way to do that. We have gotten a lot of calls about, once I put the goals in year one, because we've asked everyone to put their goals in year one so they can be reflected in the year that you are currently in, which would be either year 2, 3, or 4, or 5. If the application was never used last year. What ends up happening is that many times, particularly those systems that are in year 4 and 5, we're getting a lot of these calls in, that when they go to the year 4, they go to the year 5, they are showing 3 or 4 goals. And then the 2 goals that they put in year 1 are being shown up in years 3 and 4. We've been trying to address that here through our IT department. And so we're very aware of the issue. What I would let you know is that the best thing to end up doing is just answering the questions wherever your goals show up. Okay, so if the goals that you have put in year 1 show up now in year 3 and 4, then just answer the questions that follow in year 3 and 4. Forget about the year 1 and year 2. Okay. I don't think I don't believe it will have much bearing, and we will be working and letting, at least for the year 5, we'll be letting all of the ARC members know that this has been a glitch in the system and that we will make sure that it gets corrected, if not for the rest of this year, by next year for sure. We're also being said that some artifact documents are not being accepted. Well, some of the artifacts that people are putting in is because they've been writing their reports on a Google document. They've been putting their graphs and their charts in there. And then when it gets transferred to a PDF, or they're putting it to put it into the artifact section, it's being like 80, 90, 100 pages. It's really very too long. The artifact section only takes 20 megabytes, I think it's what it is. And so when you have documents that are beyond that, it's not going to take it. What we have been telling systems is to cut them in 2 parts, and to make sure that as they divide it into part 1 or part 2, that they divided in, not in between questions, but within, at the level of at the end of a question. So you can do questions 1 through 4 in one document and the rest in another document. Just be sure that, I just wanted you to know that that's what needs to happen if you're going to do that. Those documents that are being placed in there, primarily it's because of the graphs and the charts. They want to make sure that the entire document that has already been put into the application is also placed in the Kisa artifact section for someone to download if they wanted to, and so that they can access the graphs, etc., from there. If what I've been telling systems as well is that if you want your OBT chair or you want the ARC to take a look at the PDF version of the report, to please place at the beginning of telling your story in big capital letters, please see full version of this document in the artifact section and list what it is. Okay, that way the ARC or the OBT doesn't have to go through the entire report, knowing that there's more to the report that they're going to have to look at another document. Okay, so just make sure that you do that in that fashion. The other thing is, I get a lot of calls saying, oh my, we put our goals in year 1 and now in year 4, year 5, we have all of these questions that show up empty in the report. The report should have not shown that as an error from our part. Again, don't worry about that, because we have already said, just go into year 1 and put your goals so that they can show up in the subsequent years. So don't worry about that. I know it's easier for me to say than for you to hear that, but I apologize and I'm sorry for that. I'll be looking at some of the check questions in a minute and I'll answer as soon as I'm done with those. Next slide. Before I go into all of this, are there any questions that you want to ask verbally about what I just said? Okay, if not, we'll just move on. One of the bigger questions that we're getting right now are from year 5 systems who are finishing their year 5 cycle and they want to know what to do next. There's been a lot of questions about things that have been happening in the field. They're not sure if Kisa is going to be changing or not changing, what's going to happen, where do I start, all of those kind of pieces. And I just want to end up stating at this point that as you finish your year 5, remember this is a continuous improvement process. So you'll continue on you'll continue on in your improvement process for your next cycle of accreditation, okay? Accreditation is right now currently every 5 years, but your continuous improvement it goes on. You don't just stop and start for that, right? So it's not like, okay, I finished this year, now I'm going to just leave everything that I did in the past and I'm going to start all over again. Go ahead and review your results, right, for that year 5 that you just finished, what goals you have, what are the goals that you think that you need to continue. Try to ensure that you are looking at a complete comprehensive needs assessment, particularly if you did not do one at the end of your cycle. For that year 5, you should at least then be sure to be able to have it for year 1, so that you can look at your data and you can look at the baseline that will serve as baseline for you as you start your new cycle of accreditation. Look at the data, look and see what you have, what you need to, what's missing from the information. And then you're going to just do a needs analysis. You're going to look at quantitative, qualitative data. You're going to perform a gap analysis. You're going to look at your areas of need, establish goals, everything that anyone would do in year 1. That is not changing because we are still looking at continuous improvement, okay? So determine your strategies, implement, make sure you're doing some fidelity of implementation throughout that year 1. And you'll hear some more things of things that are coming up then later on further in this presentation. But I just want to make sure that everybody understands, regardless of what you're hearing out in the field, as we continue to work on improving things here, your year 1, if you just finished being accredited this year, is still the same thing, okay? I say it's the same thing. I remember that Gordon's commercial. Do continuous improvement, do your needs assessment, look at your gaps, decide on your goals, see what you need, and work from there, okay? Next slide. Any questions that you might have on anything? We're asking that you submit that to accreditation@ksde.org. That is the easiest way to really get information to us. It'll ensure that everyone that's working on Kisa gets that information and that you get a timely response. So I really appreciate that very much. And I think now I will turn it over to Jay, is it?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Jeanette. Good morning, everyone. Jay Scott here at KSDE. I've got some news for the group. I don't know if you heard, but KU won the national championship on Monday night. Now, if all the K-State fans just turned their cameras off and they turned their sound down, I get it, but there's some other big news. The Royals are undefeated, okay? They are undefeated. They are on track to be 162-0 this year, right? That's their vision. And so now that may change this afternoon, but right now, KU's national champions, Royals are undefeated. Pretty good stuff. You know something else that's undefeated? Our vision for education in Kansas. It survived the test of time. It survived the pandemic. It's survive all these adaptive challenges that we're going through in education. And so it stood the test of time. It is still there. It is still at the heart of every crisis that you find your vision, and it brings us all back. I think that, you know, what we learned back when Dr. Watson and Dr. Neuenswander went across the state and had community conversations, what we learned were people felt like there was a misalignment between the skills that students were learning in K-12. There was a misalignment between those skills and the skills they needed to be successful in life after high school. So and that was reaffirmed by the success tours that Randy and Brad went through last fall. And this continues to drive us for the Kansas vision. So if we take a look at the vision on the next slide, this is the vision that the board took back in 15 and 16. They took the data from all across the state, the largest qualitative study done in education in Kansas, and they pulled it into this shared vision statement. It's not just a vision statement, it's a shared vision statement. Everybody on this, in this Zoom can see themselves in this vision. Every educator across Kansas can see themselves, their work, and how it aligns with this vision. And so I think it's very powerful. It continues to drive us forward, and it continues to provide direction and purpose to all our schools. So, but one of the key words in this vision statement is success. Another key word is each. And that really speaks to that personalized learning, the individual plan of study. But that success piece is also, you know, the other thing about this vision statement, it's measurable. We can actually know when we reach this vision. And so part of that is knowing what success is. So on the next slide, you can see that the board's definition of a successful high school graduate in Kansas remains the same. It's still those 5 skill areas moving forward to be successful in post-secondary or in the attainment of a certification or in the workforce without the need for remediation. That continues to be the success metric in Kansas. And so I'm going to turn that over to Tammy to talk through the outcomes.
Thanks, Jay. So don't freak out. This isn't anything new. These are the same Kansas State Board outcomes, but our graphic designer had a little fun putting it together in a little different way. And I don't know about you, but I get tired of looking at the same old slides all the time. So here are the outcomes: individual plans of study, social emotional growth, kindergarten readiness, post-secondary success, civic engagement, being academically prepared for post-secondary, and high school graduation. So that's how we're going to measure this vision for Kansas. And so, but what you may not be quite as familiar with, next slide please, is the redesign principles. Going to be soon to be named design principles. If you're a redesign school, these should be familiar to you. If you're not, we're just elevating them a little bit more. And so student success skills, there's an integrated approach to developing social emotional learning. It's not, you don't talk about social emotional learning in a 30-minute class meeting and then never practice it or talk about it again. It's integrated throughout everything that students are doing in a school day. Family, business, and community partnerships, where you're really digging in with your stakeholders so that they can give you feedback, you can give them feedback, and you're creating and building the school that your community actually really wants. Personalized learning, where students have just a lot more agency over what they learn, how they learn, where they learn. Again, developmentally appropriately, of course, with some gradual release of that choice and responsibility. And then real world application, you know, how are students taking what they're learning in the classroom and applying it to real world problems in your community, around the world, with your businesses and industries. So we're going to keep talking about these. The redesign team and the accreditation team are coming together at KSDE. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But redesign itself is not going away. We're just not going to name schools after space programs anymore. So with that, I think we get to toss it back to Jeanette.
I think we're going to toss it back to me, Tammy.
Okay, Myron Katz.
Good morning,
there you go.
everybody. Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I think I know most of you, though I might not. I'm Myron Melton. I am the coordinator for Kisa. To follow up to Jay and Tammy's comments here, we're going to talk a little bit about, update may be a bit of a misnomer here. We're really going to talk a little bit at this point about more of that review and reflection about Kisa and where we've been and where we're headed, and a little bit about some lessons that we've learned there. But as Tammy talked about, we're starting to look at how we get this better alignment with redesign and with Kisa, and how we can kind of start melding together some of those common themes that we have between the two different areas. So to do that, you kind of have to go back and look at where you started and where you're headed to. So this may be a little bit of review, but we'll start with the next slide. So we talked about this a little bit. Jay talked about it earlier, but I think it's critical. We always come back to this. Anytime we talk about things in Kisa, we think about what it is that we're crediting schools on. Jay did a great job of explaining that vision. If that's where we want to go, then if we're talking about accrediting schools, what is it we want to see schools being accountable for? And we always come back to this vision of a successful high school graduate. And you'll hear us all the time talking about that, and particularly talking about the results piece here, the social and emotional, kindergarten readiness, high school graduation, individual plan of study, post-secondary success. Those things that we know, if we're doing well, are going to lead us to that successful high school graduate. So as we think about Kisa, we always start here. What is it we want ultimately to see for our students? So next slide. So that takes us back, and hopefully in your mind you're starting to see that flow chart that's hanging on a lot of our walls. Let's start with that successful high school graduate and works backwards. But as you look at this particular chart, this really defines the work of Kisa. Our work is defined by the Kansas Vision for Education, starting with compliance. If you start at the bottom and work your way up, starting with those compliance pieces, what are the things that just by legally and by regulation we need to be accountable for, make sure every system is doing, working up to the foundational structures. Foundational structures are really a prerequisite to accreditation, but we often say, if you haven't spent time with foundational structures, please do, because we often say, if you have a system out there that's doing all those foundational structures well, you've got a pretty good school system, because it really does encompass a lot of what we want schools to be accountable for and be able to do for their students. And as we move up again to that middle section on evidence-based practices, and you notice here, we go back, and if you go back, I will say historically, not that long ago, but if we go back a little ways, we focused a lot on these 4 R's: relationships, or elements, responsive culture, and rigor, as really a kind of a needs assessment, a way of really determining what your system is really doing well at, and where you might have some needs you want to focus on. If you recall, there was a 5th R, and that 5th R is results, and we haven't lost that. We've just moved it to that next level. And our results really are those state board outcomes. So as we start talking about Kisa, and people will say, well, gosh, there's so many different things in there. What are we really trying to target? Your North Star are really those results, those state board outcomes. Everything that we do, the goals that you select, the strategy you choose, all should lead towards improving one or more of those state board outcomes. So that middle piece is where you see a little bit of a change in current philosophy, going from just that needs assessment piece to really getting more into what does good continuous improvement look like, and making that more of an improvement process, which we'll see on this next slide. So you've heard us say multiple times that Kisa is about 2 things. It's about process, and it's about results. You can get good results, but really not be able to articulate your process, which is an issue for us, because then it begins, well, how do you know how you got better? How do you know what you did improve those results? So we want to have that focus on process. You can also have process in place that if it's not well executed, doesn't produce the results. So we take it from both sides, both process and results. This slide really hones in on what does that process look like. And if you start at the top where we talk about collecting and examining data. So what does your data tell you? Having a real data focus, moving that towards determining goals based on what you see as needs for your system. The beginning implementation, continued implementation, and of course, that really important piece at the end on analyzing that data and receiving your feedback. So this is I will say, kind of a generic look at process. There's a process within Kisa. There's different school improvement processes out there, but a lot of them are very similar and will include these same basic components. Okay, next slide. So as we look at, we've already talked about some of the changes that we've kind of, or adaptations we've made to this as we've gone through. And again, when you talk about continuous improvement, we need to be thinking about how do we continually improve our work as well. So we go back and reflect and think about, lessons learned over the time that we do this. And this is kind of the list we came up with, and we reported this to the board meeting, to the board last month as we were kind of doing this this review. But one is that focus on accountability for the Kansas Vision for Education. So as we said, we've got to have that focal point. We have to know where we're going, what we want to see for our students. And for us, it's that successful high school graduate. Focusing on data, we've really had an increased focus on that good needs assessment that, as Michelle Miller, if she's still on, will always say, I quote her all the time, she'll always say, someone will say they're doing this or doing that, and she'll say, it's evidenced by what? It's always kind of the question, is evidenced by what? What does your data tell you? What is the need? Why are we choosing this particular goal or this particular strategy? So an increased focus on data. Again, we talked about that focus on process, that everyone needs to have that continuous improvement process in place so that we know what's producing the results. Third-party accountability. For us in the Kisa system, that third-party accountability is the OVT. I can tell you we've been working with some systems, and we may talk about this as we move forward, but working with some systems around Kisa, and we hear regularly that they really value that third-party accountability. And more specifically, they really value the collaboration that takes place with that third-party accountability. So when we talk about OVT, we're talking about across that 5-year system of really forming those critical friendships with these OVT groups, so that you receive that feedback and have the opportunity to collaborate around critical issues. We've also learned about the impact on the system level. We know, Jeanette says this all the time, the systems don't have kids, buildings have kids. So we understand that that's where the real work takes place, in those classrooms between those teachers and those students. But how does that get connected and build up to a system level? And we let those needs assessments kind of build up to what does the system level need look like, and then building back down, and that constant give and take and go between the building and the system. But really the impacting the system overall has been the focus for Kisa. Level of training and supports. I will tell you, we've been really focused on this, I think, over the last couple of years. For quite a while, Jeanette was the Kisa department for a while. She fortunately has now been able to get more of a full staff, and we've been able to focus more on trainings and supports and things that we can do for the systems. It's a great thing that when we talk about, aligning things, it's a great thing that Redesign brings in. They've got a lot of great tools and materials that they've been able to do through that, and we think can be leveraged both ways. So continuing that focus on making sure we're providing not just training and supports, but the right training and supports to the systems for what they need. The evaluation focus, one of the things that we often have missed on that continuous improvement process. We put that process in place, but we don't always come back to that feedback loop. Jeanette said early, you know, when you get to the end of year 5, you don't stop and start again. You've got a feedback loop that tells you where we go next. So as you head into, you know, to year 1, what do we know from our data? What does that feedback loop tell us? How do we know what made the differences and what didn't make the differences in our data? So really focusing on a good evaluation process throughout the cycles. And then lastly, the importance on personalized supports. As we move through this, we feel like we're increasing the supports for the systems, but we also know that we need to have individual supports, tiered supports, if you will, for how we can help support each system in what they need, just as we do with a more of a generalized approach. Okay, Tammy, I think I'm going to kick it back to you.
Thanks, Myron. We just wanted to take a little trip down memory lane with Kisa and with Redesign. But I don't know if you remember this. If you're a redesign school, you do. But gosh, way back in 2017, we had this graphic that we were trying to put together to show what schools could focus on based off of the tour data when they wanted to redesign. And, you know, this was our best attempt when Jay and I had been on the job as redesign specialists for 19 days. We started July 1, and by July 19th, this is what we put together. It's a little crude, a little rough, and so we were able to codify it a little more strongly with the 4 redesign principles, and we already kind of talked through that slide. So we went from messy and confusing to a little more clear, and I think that that's probably how all of this is transpiring as we're working to continually improve what it is we're trying to support you all with. Sometimes things start messy and we're able to tidy them up. Another messy thing that we had in redesign was our methodology. And so we blended design thinking and the 4 disciplines of execution. Still super fun, still energizing. This particular methodology saw a lot of schools through COVID and all of that designing that you all needed to do through that. But again, you know, it looks a little messy, and so we've tidied that up a bit as well moving forward. But what we've really learned through redesign over the last 4 years is that leadership matters. And you might be like, well, duh, yeah, of course, we could have figured that out before. But what we really realized is teacher leadership needs to be at the heart of what we're doing with school improvement. When teachers are the ones who are closest to the students, and when they're excited and they're on fire and they have autonomy and they're building their efficacy, they start to love their job again. And, you know, we probably need a boost of that even more now, but it's also important for sustainability. You know, I don't know about you, but principals move on, bosses move on, superintendents move on. And a lot of times it's the teachers that are really rooted to the community because that's just where they're going to live. And so whatever happens, if we want it to be sustainable, it's got to engage teachers. We learned that there's power in focusing and identifying key measurable goals. The early redesign schools wanted to try lots and lots of strategies, things that they had brainstormed. Some of them never let any of them go. They tried to implement 25 different things that they just all fell in love with. And so you know, there are always more good ideas than you've got the capacity to actually implement well. And so really being intentional about helping schools and systems identify those key goals. Transparency, not only important with transparency within your staff and your stakeholders, but also with your families and business partners. Really being intentional about building and sustaining those relationships and feedback loops. And then collaboration. The regional trainings we were hosting for redesign with the support and help of our service centers were fun events. People could get excited about what they were dreaming about for their school, and then they could collaborate and talk with schools from other districts and kind of just cheer each other on. And so those are the four most powerful things that we learned through redesign over these last few years. And, you know, we have an Apollo 3 cohort and they are just trucking right along. But what's really exciting too is that our poor Apollo and Apollo 2 schools who were redesigning in the middle of a pandemic, they weren't able to go quite as fast as our earlier cohorts, but every single week we are seeing launch readiness presentations from these Apollo and Apollo 2 schools. They really own their redesign. Like, they're grabbing it hard with both hands, and they're very, very proud. We just had a launch readiness presentation this morning before curriculum leaders. So, you know, we're just really proud of these schools and these districts for taking on something that's never been done before, led by a state Department of Education where, you know, sometimes y'all are like, oh, we don't really want the State Department to come see us. But they trusted us and they took a risk, and we've got 194 schools and 71 districts that are just thinking completely differently about what they want to do with their students. So I'm going to pitch it to Jay.
Yeah, thanks, Tammy. So that was just kind of our little history lesson for you this morning on where Kisa's been, where redesign has been, and now we're blending those two together. And this is doing what we said we would do. 5 years ago, when we rolled out Kisa and redesign, we were talking about how in the future these were going to be blended together, and now it's happening. We're taking the lessons learned, the best things from each Kisa and redesign, and blending those together. And the team that it'll still be Kisa. Okay, we're going to introduce another acronym, so I want to make sure we're clear on this. It will still be Kisa. Accreditation is Kisa, but the team that will oversee it is the Accreditation and Design team. And yes, we've already got a lot of home security jokes going, but you know, it's Accreditation and Design, and this is our mission. So this is where we're headed together. Within a system of accreditation, provide accountability along with support to move systems toward ensuring the success of each student. And so that accountability and support is really in two areas. It's accountability for a quality continuous improvement process that you're following as a system, and it's also accountability for results. So both will be part of the accountability piece of accreditation, process and results. The execution piece, right? Actually, you've got this plan, you've got goals, now you've got strategies, now you've got to go out and execute. That's really lies at the building and the district level, to go out and execute on those things that that you value the most. And so the design piece of that is really the design of teaching and learning. And that's a slant towards redesign. It's how you structure the teaching and learning in your buildings and in your system. So that's the design piece, and there will still be support for that as well. We'll blend that into the support model. So that's really the new team. This is, yeah, go ahead, that's fine. This is our team. So our team members, Jeanette, you know Jeanette, she's our assistant director. John Giradat, he's our EPC. Myron Melton, Kisa coordinator. Pat Bone, who is doing a great job today. I love the tunes at the beginning, Pat. But I think somebody by the name of Ben Proctor is probably going to keep Pat to himself, right? And so eventually we'll have to hire an administrative assistant for our team later this spring. We have Sarah Perryman, our redesign coordinator. She'll be part of the team. And then we do have an unfilled position, an EPC position, that we will look to fill later, or as we go through this spring on our team. So that will be the team. And I just want to take a moment to say thanks to Michelle, to Jeanette, to Myron and John for the incredible work that they've done. They inherited Kisa, and they really increased the rigor and the accountability into accreditation, and really helped schools and systems all across the state improve. So kudos to them. Dr. Mitchell will be our elementary she'll be a co-director of ADT, but she'll still specialize in elementary. She's not giving that up. And myself, I'll be the co-director of ADT. We'll do this together, but I'll also specialize in secondary design. So that's really the team. And I think next, be kicking it over to Sarah.
Great, thanks, Jay. So now that you know where we've been with Kisa and redesign, you know who is doing this work, we're going to spend just a few minutes talking about where we're going to blend these two initiatives and models into one. So you heard an explanation about the two methodologies, the two improvement processes that have been used. The one on the left being with Kisa, the one on the right being our methodology for redesign. And we knew that as these teams came together, that we were going to have to take the best of our learning, blend that together to really figure out and determine what is the best model to put in front of systems that can be used consistently, that's clear, and eliminates some of that redundancy. And so the model that we're going to show you now was created with the support of our TAS and friends as well. So this is a language and structure and a framework that all of these different state teams will be utilizing to, again, just provide that clarity for the field. And so there are two layers to this methodology that we're currently using and piloting and testing and getting feedback on. There's the outer layer, which really emphasizes the areas in which we're focusing on when talking about what makes for a quality system. And then the internal part is that continuous improvement process. So those external components start with the state board outcomes as that North Star. That's the results that we want to move. That's that big thing that we want to leverage with our work. Those outside components of leadership and culture, those design principles that you've been talked through, the foundational structures that Myron worked us through, curriculum, instruction, assessment, database, decision-making, these are those essential components of what we believe is going to make for an effective system. So in the Kisa model that was initially rolled out, you had those 4 R's. What we've determined is that these components maybe provide a little bit more clarity and structure to what it is that we mean when we talk about what makes for a quality system. And so as we are thinking about how we as a new team are going to execute on our mission of providing accountability and support, we knew that we had to get this framework, this aligned methodology in front of some of our new systems to provide strategic and intentional support around analyzing those external components like Jeanette was talking about in the chat. But then also providing that intentional support and accountability through a regional approach of working through that continuous growth cycle. And so in order to go from this graphic on a screen into what does this actually look like for our systems across the state, we have been working with 11 systems this year across 3 regional sites to really pilot that accountability and support for process and results. So these brave 11 systems have been working with us. We scheduled 5 meetings, 5 in-person meetings for this past year. All of these systems are starting a new cycle of accreditation, so they're in year 1. And we worked with them to do a needs assessment, with one part of that being a perception survey around those 5 components in the state board outcomes that you saw outlined. And then we've also been providing intentional support for working through those phases of continuous improvement. So we've worked through data analysis, setting goals, selecting strategies, and we'll meet with these systems again next year for 2, possibly 3 meetings to finish out that improvement cycle of talking about strategy implementation and analysis. So at these regional meetings, folks have been held accountable by being encouraged and asked. I hate to use the word required, so I say asked to share out on the work that they've done in between meetings to really execute on that work that is embedded in a needs assessment and data analysis and setting goals. So as part of this regional collaboration, they haven't just received training, but they've also been walked through tasks that then they report back out on, get feedback from their peers to help drive that improvement. So as Myron talked about, that external accountability, that external review, this regional group has served as that for one another. And so right now, this regional training is a pilot, and these are the different things that we're hoping to learn. So we know that leadership and focus and transparency and collaboration are important. And so we want to make sure that the support and accountability that we're piloting and providing, that it's helping impact leaders and that it's helping them establish a clear focus, that the work that we're doing is ensuring that they have clear and actionable goals to work on in their improvement process. We want to make sure that there's transparency and that the work happening in these regional trainings isn't just done and owned by a small team, but that part of engaging in this process means getting feedback from the rest of your stakeholders, teachers, and community at large. And we also want to know how this collaboration amongst systems in a regional model, how well does that leverage external accountability? So these are just some of the research questions, if you will, that we've been working to answer as we've been piloting a regional support model with those 11 systems this year. So again, taking that graphic, that aligned methodology, and really trying to put it into practice while answering these intentional questions. And with that, I think I am turning it back over to Jay to see if we have any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. So that was starting with a Kisa update on what systems need to be focused on right now this spring, to the history lesson of Kisa and redesign, and now how we're blending it together with the accreditation design team. And then to finish off with the regional training pilot, we've got some very courageous systems that have jumped in and really worked through this process this year, and very proud of the work that they're doing, and they're working very hard. So if you have any questions you want to unmute and ask, this is the time for that. If you're not comfortable with that, if you want to throw it in the chat, we can work to answer those questions in the chat as we move forward. So I'll just give everybody a little bit of time if anybody wants to unmute and ask some questions. I think my record on Zoom wait time is like 30 seconds. So I'm not going to try to break that record today. We'll go ahead and turn you on to the next one, to the next section. Thank you again for being here today, and thank you for the work that you do every day in Kansas.
Well, thank you to the team for that wonderful presentation and all of that information. And we're now turning it over to our teacher leader program.
Thank you very much, but I do think there's one question left for the team that just finished that Melissa put in the chat. So I don't know if Jay or...
So, yeah, go ahead, Tammy. So it's a good question, Melissa. We are actually, those phases, there's 5 phases in the regional pilot, the process that we have not finished this year. So the pilot systems are actually going to continue into next year. So those same 11 that you saw, they're going to continue into next year. We have not decided what the process will look like for next year. We will not be doing a pilot with year 1 systems next year, I can tell you that. But we're going to be finishing the pilot with the current pilot systems, and then learning from that and implementing that eventually in the future.
Great. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm Lori Curtis. I'm just one of the program managers that are here on the CSAS team. And you can see all of our names listed on this slide, and that will appear also at the end. So if you have a question or want to reach out for anything, you will be able to get our contact information right there. So today we're going to give you an update on what we have been doing in our individual worlds. And there'll be time at the end for some questions.
Thank you, Lori. My name is Nathan McAllister. I am the Humanities Program Manager for History, Government, Social Studies. One of the updates that we have is the Twitter feed that we have started here at KSDE. You will notice, and the character limits that Twitter puts on us don't allow for the full spelling of teacher leaders, but there's the handle, and we'll be using that to tag some of the events and some of the professional development and other activities that we are putting on throughout the state. The program itself is elevating great teachers to join the work of humanities, and I think Tammy mentioned it, having great teacher leaders just re-energizes your school system. And so our teacher leaders come from across the state supporting standards assessment and great classroom instruction, and they are incredibly excited to be working with the teachers in your system. Thank you very much. We are offering the Summer Academies. Scott mentioned this earlier, so I won't dwell on this too long, except to say that you are encouraged to use your ESSER funds to support your teachers in attendance at the Summer Academies. Each of our areas will be having presenters, and a lot of these will be our teacher leaders. And again, high energy and a lot of good evidence-based practice will be demonstrated at the Summer Academies. And again, that's $50 cost, but you can use that ESSER funding to support your teachers in attendance. Another offering that we have is the Teacher Treks. Don't be surprised if this name changes next year to something else. But we will have for this summer, June 4th, El Cortalejo in Scott City. This will be led by History, Government, Social Studies and ELA. This should be incredibly exciting. We're going to have the opportunity to actually do some archaeological hands-on trainings, really due in part to the fact that they had to do some excavation, so they're going to let us do some of the work. June 11th will be in Concordia, orphan trains. This will be a virtual field trip, but there's talk that the HDSS people will also go out there to visit the POW camp and the orphan trains. So it'll be a combination again. July 9th with Mark, and he will be taking you through green energy, the largest hand-dug well, which I'm super excited about, out in Greensburg. And we will round out the Teacher Treks for this summer at Big Brutus in West Mineral City. If you haven't been there, it's really cool. I know Joanne is super excited to be going to Big Brutus. She's going to be in the, they're going to hold class in the shovel, I believe, is how they're going to do that. And registration was the QR code. If you want to go back, take a little picture of that for the registration, feel free to do that or come back to the slides as they're sent out to you. Yet another offering, read-alongs, where we have partnered with several organizations to create elementary level read-alongs. And the first one, which you have a QR code you can scan, you can go right to the video, is with Gilder Lehrman and the Hamilton Education Program. And the book they used was No Small Potatoes. It's really, really cool if you haven't seen it. We are also looking at read-alongs for the story of the Dockham Sit-In in Wichita, A Vote for Susanna, which Susanna Salter, the first woman mayor in the United States from Argonia, Kansas, and Exquisite, the poetry and life of Gwendolyn Brooks. These are all going to be read-alongs. These are all in the planning phase, except for the Gilder Lehrman, which is complete. And more to come. For my part, History, Government, Social Studies, we are kicking off this month the History, Government, Social Studies regional PLCs, professional learning communities. We plan to have these once every quarter. This is our kickoff this April, and we've already had our Southwest Plains regional PLC in Sublette. Next Monday is Northwest Kansas and Oakley. And then April 22nd will be Greenbush and Lawrence and Girard, and we will be adding a 5th regional site in Hutchinson at SDAC. And so these are an opportunity for your history, government, social studies teachers to come together, do some networking, learn some good content, exchange ideas on best practices, and get some instructional strategies. So those are a lot of fun. Again, we have the virtual field trips, the summer academies, and then this summer, as you all know, and I've been hearing the comments about the assessments, we are going to do a rater review and calibration with the classroom-based assessment for history, government, social studies. We're going to take all of those samples that I've been requesting throughout the year. I know my first email went out for requests for samples on right around the 25th of August, sent out a reminder in mid-March, and we're going to take all of those samples, the rubrics, and we're going to do some calibration, some reviewing. We're going to bring teachers together to look through that and see if there are any clarifications that are needed.
Well, again, I'm Lori Curtis, the new one on this fun team, and my work has to do with early literacy and dyslexia. Some of you might have received a survey that I sent out a little over a month ago now, kind of asking the field what was needed in this area, and I had over 439 responses, so I was really excited by that. And that is what has actually led my plans that you'll see right here on this slide. So the summer academies, I have 2 great presenters, one of them, the great Melissa Brenner's on this call today. She and Jerry Powers are working on a presentation for oral language and how that's the foundation for literacy. And then also a presentation on really using your data to inform instruction and all of that to help guide us in our work with all students, and also really specifically with those students that are struggling readers. So also I have one of my TLCs. I have 3 TLCs and 3 field educators. And I have another team that they're working on designing 90-minute literacy block frameworks for professional learning that will be going out throughout the state. That was the #1 request that came back on that survey as something schools were really interested in looking at. That will be done to support the structured literacy work. Also providing some professional learning for secondary teachers regarding working with those students in their classes that are struggling with literacy. And I'm doing some research on screening protocols. You'll probably be hearing more about that as we go on. We're doing this summer a text-based professional learning on a book called Fresh Look at Phonics by Wiley Blevins, and that will be this summer. And hope some of your teachers will be involved in that. You'll be seeing information coming out very soon about that and the scheduling for that. Also, I'm working on creating a statewide literacy advisory council, bringing together lots of different voices from different sizes of districts with different perspectives on what is going on in literacy in the state. So that group will be forming, and you'll hear more information as we hopefully will start meeting in the fall. And then also in that survey I sent out, I had asked those who had completed if they were interested in being placed on an early literacy dyslexia listserv. And there was interest in that. And so that will be going out with its first newsletter coming soon.
Sorry, Lori, I was answering your question in the chat. I just wanted to confirm that 90-minute literacy block is going to be a session offered during summer academies this summer. Is that correct?
No, that is not part of that's going to be another type of professional learning. It will just be the other 2, the database decision-making and oral language to literacy will be our summer academy offerings.
So when will the 90-minute literacy block, when will that be available?
It'll be available probably starting in August.
So ignore my answer. It's wrong. It was August. Sorry. Hi, everyone. I'm Joanne McGrell. I am the humanities, other half of the humanities program manager team for ELA. We right now are having a wonderful text-dependent professional development on the writing revolution. And a huge shout out to Blue Valley for Amanda Whitty, Olathe for Luann Fox, and Wichita for Tanya Martinez, who are the facilitators for that. It is going beautifully. We're also working on writing research so that we start to develop that prong of our comprehensive literacy plan. And so we will be forming that with TLCs, our teacher leaders, our field educators, and that Literacy Advisory Council we will also use as far as what Lori is creating, because we know that has been absent for a while as we focused on reading. So we've been doing that. The other thing that we're going to start up here shortly is another text-dependent professional development on bringing words to life from Beck and McCowan, so that that's going to be coming up real quick in May and June. You should be getting registration links for that within the next week and a half off of the listserv, both curriculum leaders and the ELA and elementary and dyslexia listservs. So that will be coming out. I already talked about the writing research. One of the things that we're doing is we're taking a look at learning progressions in grades 3 through 5. We've had 6 through 8 is done, 9, 10 is completed as well. We did that last summer. And so we're looking at 3 to 5 of getting those standards and applying them to a rubric of the learning progressions that kids go through when they're developing that particular standard. So it gives teachers more insight as far as content development and also some ability to assess the kids' zone of proximal development to apply classroom-based intervention during that time as far as the tier 2 level. So, and also where you start as far as tier 1 is concerned when we have multiple places where kids are. So we're going to be doing that May 24th and 25th. Again, I'll be sending out a link in order to get 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers and curriculum directors in order to help us do that work. The virtual field trips, what ELA decided to do is they wanted to give people the chance of, no matter where you are in the state, to basically drop your 4 walls in your classroom and journey out there virtually. And we will be there filming those live versions as far as NATE is concerned to bring in for discussion points of our virtual opportunities. And this year we're doing 3. We're doing El Cordalejo, Orphan Trains, and Big Brutus. Those should be up and ready to go in August. Our goal is July, but Big Brutus is in July, so that one might be pushed a little bit more. And we're also differentiating as far as grade bands are concerned and appropriateness of that. We will have multiple avenues for people to enter into that. The last thing I'll talk about is summer academies. And within summer academies, Lori has day 1 of with her dyslexia for K2, K3, and we are doing day 2 ELA people and one of Lori's TLCs who's graciously helped us out. We're going to be doing the tech sets and how that helps with background knowledge, vocabulary instruction, and also grammar. And grammar is the big one that I keep hearing of. How do I do this? How do we make it stick for kids? And that's another one that we will be doing in 4 through 12, and it could be 3 through 12 because 3rd grade kind of bounce around as far as needs are concerned. We're looking at tackling complex text. What is complex text? How do we get complex text in for our kids? And is our text that we're giving kids are they able to attack more challenging texts when it comes to their own personal reading and or the state assessment. And so we'll be looking at that. The reading and writing connections, you know, our reading scores are not, they're kind of stagnant. And so how do we then start to teach kids writing to help the reading out? I feel that we've only focused on reading, and that might be part of our problem. The writing research, we're going to start to lay the direction forward, and then critical thinking and with academic language is another opportunity that we're going to do for summer academies. So again, we hope to see you there. Oh, and I also get English learners. English learners is one that we are going to be starting for fiscal year 23, which we're going to have offerings for summer academies. I will be sending out links as far as on the English learner site and the EL site as far as getting more teacher leaders and field educators for this work. Right now I have 8 from previous signups. So I've tackled those first, but we're going to need more to help carry the load. So if you have a great teacher that's ESOL and has been in the classroom and worked with our kiddos, please have them sign up so that we can get that done. The summer academies, there are the group that I have focused on these areas as far as what we do with kids in the classroom that are EL labeled. And so how do we get that across in content areas? What are strategies and instructional practices for those teachers? We also looked as families as partners at how do we bring in those culturally and linguistically diverse families and give them a place within our system. We also want to look at that the BICS and the academic language and how to get that developed through structured conversations and then explicit vocabulary instruction. So those are what we're going to offer. We got 2 more that we're going to add, and we will have that discussion on Monday. So we hope to see you there.
Good morning. I'm Stephen King. I am over math and computer science on the STEM team. We have actually a few pretty big projects this summer. One being the summer academies. Thank you, Joanne, for talking about the cool stuff ELA is going to be doing. We're looking at forming a couple of days of discussion in math around the 5 practices for orchestrating productive math discussions from the NCTM. So it will be, an evidence-based discussion for a couple of days on really how to effectively engage students in the math classroom at all levels. So that'll be fun. Also, and these 2 are a little, I have to say it, a little bit tentative because I would love to have had all the paperwork in place by now. But so both of these are up before the Board of Education next Tuesday for their approval to do the contracts. We have Peter I can never say his last name, Liljadal. And he's going to be presenting 3 different PDs over the summer. One is hosted by Fort Hays State, one hosted by our friends at TPS 501. And one will be a virtual presentation later on in the summer. So that should be a lot of fun, talking about building thinking classrooms. Computer science, we're planning an APSI, which is the Advanced Placement Summer Institute in Salina, for up to 30 Kansas teachers to get us involved. I don't know if you've been following the HB 2466, the House bill that if passes, will require computer science to be taught in every high school. So that's kind of a prep for that, talking about how to do the AP course. And simultaneously, we're looking at doing a K-5 computer science workshop by one of our leading K-5 level STEM leaders in the state in Salina at the same place at the same time. So hopefully that'll be a lot of fun. Those are, like I said, the 2 big things. And because of contractual rules with the state, they have to go before the board for approval, which I'm expecting to happen next Tuesday. So that'll be fun. Also, we're looking at building professional learning communities across Kansas. We're looking at doing a few major things for math this coming year. We're looking at building kind of a think tank, if you will, for equitable teaching in math, for culturally relevant teaching of math. And we're also looking at building a bit of a redesign group focused on the math community pages, which is some have noted are a little bit of a mess, admittedly so. So we're hopefully going to be, getting field input for how best to redesign and restructure that information so it's most useful for the field. Also going to be doing computer science policy roadshow this summer, talking about, if this bill passes or if it doesn't, where we are as a state in terms of implementing computer science. So it's going to be a busy next year. Looking forward to it. And with that, I will turn it over to the next slide. Meg.
Thank you. And friends, I was listening to Michelle Miller talk, and I was hearing about the science teacher shortage, and I thought, I have figured it out. Do I have your attention now? Because in my desk, I have fortune-telling fish. And all I have to do is take this fish and put it on my hand. And if I've been lucky enough to be with your teachers at all, you've seen these. But when it flips over, it tells me that something is false. No, like we don't. I'm looking at faces and we don't think that this will solve all of Kansas' education problems. Okay, I will agree with you. I'm Meg Richard, I am your science consultant. And the reason I shared this fortune-telling fish, besides having a manipulative, which I'm kind of in love with, was because as you are starting to plan your schedules for elementary, I will plead with you, please make sure you're devoting some of that time to science and curiosity and wonder. Let them read about nonfiction, complex text, about things they're interested in. Let them ask those questions and let it help to drive some of our investigations in cross-curricular areas. Or have me come in and I'll bring you all sorts of fortune-telling fish and we can just play. For science this year, we have a lot of exciting things happening this summer, which I am not fully allowed to talk about, but be watching your emails this coming week. Like Stephen with math, we're pending board approval for a very in-depth, rich summer experience that will be happening virtually from 8 a.m. to noon in June and July. Additionally, I've been getting a lot of questions about storylining workshops. Fort Hays State is putting on 3-week-long opportunities for teachers. So that will also be included in April's newsletter and up in May. And then I'm going to drop a couple of links into the chat. The first one being, regardless of the content area. So that means math, science, and English. We are still looking for people to review assessment items over the summer. It is a paid opportunity. And when I was in the classroom, I didn't realize this is a peek behind the curtain. So if you have that teacher in your district who every year comes to you and knows it's like, man, those science items stink, Meg Richard needs a phone call, feel free to have them call me. I am happy to talk to them about that, but I'm also happy to pay them to come in and help with that work over the summer. The science portion will be July 25th through 29th. It's a paid opportunity again, and that link is in the chat. And if you have questions about that, let me know. In addition to that, we have our CATS camp coming up, and I put it in the chat earlier. As we're thinking about retention and recruitment, one of the reasons I stay here is because I have amazing collaborators. So thinking about our state level content area teaching groups is a really great investment in both your teacher to allow them to feel empowered and validated and fill their buckets with really great ideas from additional educators around the state. So whether it's science or whether it's another content area, I'd encourage you to think about that. Last but not least, as we're thinking about filling buckets, I am super excited. Yesterday, we launched this Lunch with Leaders book study. This is for you. So if you are involved in science decision-making, walkthroughs, observations, critiquing curriculum, I still have 15 available copies. We just started last week. Please let me know if you're interested in joining us. 1 hour, April, and 1 day of May. But the goal is with this study to help support you in your spaces as we look at helping our teachers in their science implementation. We just threw a ton at you. So if you're thinking, man, this is all really, really great, but how can I get in the know and be pushing this information out so that teachers can collaborate and have great resources? We'd encourage you to visit the CSAS website on KSDE. You'll notice that our calendar events are located in the bottom right-hand corner, or to sign up on any of the list serves as we continue to push out regular information in that way as well. Last but not least, working with your teachers and working with you is probably the best part of my job, and not to speak for my colleagues, probably theirs as well. I just did though. So please don't hesitate to pick up the phone, email us, or reach out if there are ways that we can be better supporting you, your staff, and specifically your content area standards. And with that, I'll hand it back to Pat, but thank you so much for granting us this time, space, and place.
Wow, that was a lot of information. You are correct. And we are so looking forward to all those summer opportunities for teachers. Our next presenter, Kevin Davis, is going to share with us a little bit about letters training.
Sorry about that, everyone. Hi, I am Kevin Davis with TASM Coordination Project. We are working with KSDE on the Kansas Science of Reading Professional Learning course with letters. Being cognizant of pretty quickly, but things to be thinking of about is that this is available to any Kansas teacher that provides direct instruction to students pre-K through 3rd grade who teach in public or private accredited schools. There is no cost to the school district for the online course, the materials, or the live trainings. The substitutes and stipends, or however you choose to incentivize it locally, is not covered in this funding, but the course, the materials, and the live trainings are. So, we look at this, and research indicates that 95% of all children or students should be able to learn to read. There's roughly 5% of students that have significant cognitive disabilities that probably will not have the brain structures and ability to be able to actually learn to read. We also all know the NAEP scores and what they look like across the nation over time. But this is not just a school district school problem. This starts in the Institutes of Higher Learning. This is from the National Council on Teacher Quality, looking at the 5 big areas of reading and whether they are covered in the curriculum. The studies over time have shown that programs have a wide variety of how well those 5 areas of the science of reading are covered. So we are looking here not only at it's not a school problem, it is a learning issue of getting the correct content to our teachers, whether they are new or experienced teachers. Letters uses the science of reading based on the simple view of reading, which basically says that children need to have word recognition plus language comprehension to allow them to achieve reading comprehension. When you break this apart, you look at the skills that of language comprehension and word recognition that allows a child to become a skilled reader. So that is the science of reading that letters focuses on. These elements that you see in Scarborough's rope presented here are the elements and the topics that are covered in letters training. So letters stands for the language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling, which basically means any teacher is probably working on these topics. Letters covers writing, spelling, and oral language. It focuses on the 5 big areas of reading as we've all have been following and known since the reading panel report. Professional development, this letters prize professional development that reflects on what teachers want. It is relevant to what they're teaching in their classroom. The online course and the trainings are interactive. It's very practical. It actually allows them to and gives them opportunities to build lessons and provides structures that will help improve their instruction immediately. We're really looking at a sustained model so that we can continue to provide professional development ongoing across the state to teachers, and is also very respectful. It's the idea that, we know better, we do better. And so what Letters does is really help teachers understand the what, why, and how do we improve reading instruction. It empowers them with that knowledge, the skills, and the confidence so that they can use the program's curriculum and materials that you have locally. It integrates well. Letters is not a replacement for anything. It does not replace your curriculum. It does not replace your tiered system. It doesn't replace anything. Letters is a professional development program that allows your teachers to use your locally selected reading curriculum and intervention materials better. It allows your teachers to provide intervention within your tiered system much better. This also, even when you start working in redesign, this is just building the knowledge and skills that address the foundational skills of reading, writing, and oral language. The implementation model that Letters uses, it consists of an online component. So teachers will be doing online coursework and also bridge to practice activities, what they call them, which is where they will take immediately what they have learned in the online course and work with a few students in their classroom to apply it immediately. It comes with print materials, which is a manual that provides some reading for them as well. And then to support that, it loops back around with face-to-face training. The current Letters, the new Letters, which is 3rd edition, which has the online component, is different than what we have seen before in 2nd edition Letters, which was all instructor-led training. So teachers will be doing work prior to showing up to the days of face-to-face training. So the total implementation model, we have 2 different courses, basically. You have Letters for early childhood educators, which are teachers who teach before children younger than kindergarten. That course is commonly completed over a school year. It'll end up taking a teacher about 20 to 30 hours of online coursework and work with their students. And then they'll do 12 hours or 2 days of live training. For your Letters, for your elementary staff, K3, it actually is broken apart into 2 volumes. And so during year 1, they'll do the first half, volume 1, which looks at the first part of the simple view of reading over the first year. And the second year, they'll do volume 2, which looks at the second part of the simple view that we looked at earlier. Each year, the online part is roughly 45 to 60 hours of training time to complete. That kind of depends on their background knowledge. I'm a school psychologist, and when I completed it, it took me a little bit longer because these were some knowledge and background knowledge that I did not receive in my professional training. So it took me a little bit longer. Some of your teachers will go through it very much quicker than this. Also, each year, in addition to that online training and those bridge practice activities, they'll do 4 days of live training, 1 day of training with each one of those units. Again, that allows them gives the opportunity to check back in, to reinforce their learning, to answer questions, clarify their understanding, and take their learning deeper. One thing we do know is that very few of us are one trial learners. So this gives us a chance to deepen that understanding and knowledge. This just kind of gives a very quick example. We break a pacing guide showing that how teachers work through the course. We provide this to them so that they can plan their day or week. Are they going to have to spend 90 minutes this week, or do they need to plan on spending a couple hours this week on the course? So training options available in the state. So with the use of the ESSER funds that Dr. Watson has allocated to this, we have several options. The service centers across the state have letters facilitators, and they are able to provide you in-person training options. You can reach out to your service centers for that. You have virtual options that we do with statewide training groups. We have the Lexia, the publisher provides trainers, and we do virtual training. The virtual trainings are actually pretty good too. So don't just dismiss them. So if you are in a remote spot where it makes it difficult for you to get to a service center for training, this could be a great opportunity for your staff to participate. And the other option is if you're in a larger district or you have some neighboring districts and you can put together a training group of about 40 people, which is the cap of the training groups, we're happy to work with you to arrange your own training groups. That way you get to set your dates. So we'd really try to work with you to make this fit. We realize that this is a big commitment for staff and staff time and administrators to free time for teachers to do this. So we're trying to provide as much flexibility as possible. The virtual options with statewide trainers, one of the things to think about that is we are running multiple training groups. So it's not like all your teachers would have to be out the same day if they're participating. We can spread those out, help you spread those out so that it'll lessen the load of substitutes and the impact of instruction that's occurring in your building. But we do understand and recognize that there are challenges with this because this is a big lift. But again, it is critical learning that teachers need to know. So I am happy to take questions now. Also, you can check out, there's information on the TADSN website at ksdtadsn.org/letters. On the front page, you'll see a thing that says letters training, a button. You can check that out. You can email me. I also gave Pat a document that to post with the materials that has a lot of question and answers. So that will help you as well. There's the link, there's my email address in the chat. And so there's that. I think we're about back on time. I'm happy to take questions, take emails from you all. Otherwise, thank you for your time. I don't know if you have anything to add, Lori, Curtis?
I don't have anything specific to add, but I've been through parts of this training, and I know Joanne has been through this training as well, but we're re-experiencing it in the new edition together. And I think, and Joanne can certainly add if she'd like to, but I think what makes it challenging is looking at 2 years of training, but that's what makes it powerful, is the fact that it's work over time, which is really what it takes to change practice. So I think what looks as a challenge is probably what makes it a powerful piece of professional learning.
Excellent.
And I would, sorry, Kevin, I would add also with Lori that it gives you time to implement and to discuss with colleagues and to see if you're on the right track or how might you deliver that better as far as the knowledge base is concerned, because there is a lot of strong evidence within it that teachers may not know.
Excellent. And the other thing I thought I probably should mention is, KSDE has been supporting districts and trainers and facilitators and letters since, gosh, back 2012, I believe, when first edition came out. And so, as we move to third edition, there are many districts across the state that already have some of your own local certified facilitators. I've tried to reach out to you if you have some, but if you have questions about that, or if you have some, it is even possible to use your own local facilitators to do this training. So we are doing everything we can to make sure that you are getting the value for the investments that you have made in your district. On that, I think I am done. Thank you all so much. Oh, yes, Lori pointed out that higher education professionals who may also participate in this course free of charge. So sign-ups are on the TADSN website, or you can email me and I'll happily help you out with that.
Thank you, Kevin. We appreciate you joining us today. And we're going to turn it over next to Amanda Peterson to talk about kindergarten readiness.
Terrific. Well, good morning, everybody. Congratulations and welcome to the coveted 11:50 a.m. on a Friday morning Zoom slot. I'm so glad to be with all of you. And I'm especially excited because it's April in Kansas, which means that many of you are hard at work getting ready for the upcoming kindergarten year. You can find the materials that Natalie and I will discuss today embedded in the agenda, which you can see here on the screen. And we're going to talk about just a couple of pieces. So thing number one, and here you can look at your video because I have physical props. You all might remember this booklet, Kindergarten in Kansas. We've updated it. It now looks like this. And if you would like to order free copies, these are booklets for families. We think they're a really terrific resource. The Kansas Parent Information Resource Center partners with us to make these available at no charge to anybody in the state who serves families of kids who will eventually be going to kindergarten. So I would really encourage you, if you've not before, to take a look at those booklets. They're linked in the agenda to see the information that's shared. When we updated them, we do now preview the kindergarten readiness snapshot and include information about Kansans Can. And our communications team did just a fabulous job of making them look really fresh and really easy to read. There's lots of white space, and it just looks really good and clear and not overwhelming. So I'd encourage you to take a look. I'd encourage you to order free copies. We have them available in additional languages and are looking forward to seeing whether that is helpful as folks are serving a wide range of families. And if you have any questions at all, you can contact Natalie Schweda, whose email address is on the agenda. I should have looked this up. I was just talking to Dr. Jane Groff recently, and they've gotten either 20,000 or 40,000 of these shipped out this year. And I'm not remembering which, but either way, I remember hearing it and saying, gosh, that's been a lot because we've only had these out for a couple of months. So thanks to all of you for your work to get these into the hands of families. And we are really looking forward to those efforts moving forward. Thing number two is a place where I have a request of all of you because we need your help. We've got a collective opportunity in our state to really make sure that we are getting the most out of our kindergarten readiness snapshot, the ASQ. I know that many of you are quite familiar with that by now, but if you do happen to be in a district where perhaps there will be some staff transitions over the summer and you might have new folks who are coming in who are going to be responsible for the ASQ, I'd really encourage you to make sure that you are setting up their accounts and making sure that you've got a transition plan in place and making sure that completing the ASQ for the families of incoming kindergartners is not something that's falling through the cracks. We know that this is a really important opportunity to engage with families and build a strong relationship right from the start. And after the disruption that we've experienced from the last several years, we know that it's more important than ever to make sure that we are partnering with families to really understand their child's development well. For the second year in a row, we are allowing districts the opportunity to make to begin administering the ASQ in the springtime when you might be doing some kind of kindergarten orientation or kindergarten enrollment event already. If you'd like to do that, we do ask you to submit a short Qualtrics survey to make sure that we are all on the same page with our expectations for what that will look like. And that short survey is linked here. I will note, I thought that we had set up Qualtrics so that it would automatically send you an email saying that you are good to go and we'll follow up with you if you have any questions. I'm still new to Qualtrics, so we realize that that automatic email is not going out. So if you have submitted that survey, then you are good to go and you do not need to wait for a confirmation from us at KSDE to begin administering that for the springtime. That just gives us the information that we'll need to be able to pull the data and know when to start pulling the data when we're doing that at the end of the year. If you'd like to wait until later to begin administering the ASQ, that's perfectly fine. The ASQ, you should be administering that to everybody by September 20th. And then you, I want to make sure I get this date right. And then the date to make sure that all data is entered into ASQ Online is October 10th of 2022. I'll also note the most common thing that we're seeing as people are getting used to working with the ASQ Online system is that they get it set up and they send the links out to families and then they forget to accept those as they come in family access. So they're just all sitting in the ASQ Online account, which we know is not terribly helpful. So make sure that you have a process in place to be checking that ASQ online account regularly. You can set up email notifications or text notifications if you want to know when there are pending screenings in there, and we'd be happy to provide you technical support. So thanks in advance for all of your work to make sure that we can get a really good, strong participation rate on this moving forward. I'll now turn it over to my colleague, Natalie McLean, to talk a little bit about some of the other resources that we have available to help you think about kindergarten transitions.
Good morning. I know kindergarten roundup is going on at our district today. So I know a lot of you are planning on that coming up very soon if it hasn't happened already. So as you do this, I want you to remember that kindergarten transition is not just kindergarten roundup, that we need to think about how are we transitioning not only our students, but also our families and our staff and getting them ready for our incoming kindergartners. So I want to share with you a couple things that Kindergarten in Kansas booklet is a beautiful tool to share with families to help them get ready. There's some nice checklists in there that they can think about what are some things I need to be sure and documents that I need to have when kindergarten enrollment comes around, as well as some ways that they can get their kindergartners or future kindergartners ready for kindergarten. I also want to share with you a link. We recently had a recording during our February 23rd All In for Kansas Kids webinar. There is a, see if I can get this link in there, a lovely conversation about what some programs who are currently partnering with their school districts on how they transition kiddos and some projects that we have going on there. I also like to share the Kindergarten Transitions Toolkit, which is a toolkit that was developed for preschool programs and school districts and communities to come together and figure out how a plan, how you can make a plan for your community to transition the kindergartners in your school district. This toolkit includes benefits for transition planning. It's got a kindergarten transition MOU work plan. It's got an MOU template that your community can work together on and figure out what are some things that we want to do, not only with our kiddos who may be in preschool programs, but maybe even kiddos who are in family child cares or are at home, and how we can get those families and kids ready for kindergarten. I also like to share the Head Start Childhood Learning and Knowledge Center Transition to Kindergarten page. This page also has some great ideas, and it's got videos, webinars, and trainings for staff on how they can prepare kids to move up to kindergarten. So these are just a few tools. I'm sorry I was so rushed here today, but you can't, early childhood has a short wait time. We shouldn't have been saved to last. So hopefully you guys can use some of these ideas to work with your kiddos, your families, and your staff to transition into kindergarten.
Terrific. Thank you, Natalie. And everybody, we've got 2 more minutes and we will end at noon. But the very last piece I wanted to share is something that you can find in our most recent program updates. We often hear, you know, as folks are really trying to make sure that they are ready for incoming kindergartners and ready to teach and support them in the way that young children learn best. Sometimes we need some additional professional learning for our administrators to really understand what quality learning looks like in an early childhood environment. And so if you've not heard of the National P3 Center or the Leadership Certificate Program, we've had a cohort of Kansas administrators going through this last year. This is especially well targeted for elementary principals or elementary administrators who are thinking about how to build really good aligned pre-K through 3rd grade systems. And I'd really recommend that you take a look at it as you're thinking about your professional learning for the upcoming year. So you've got our contact information. Feel welcome to get in touch with us if you need us. It is 11:59, and the last thing to share is that these are the dates for your upcoming meetings. As we've discussed, we are so excited for the opportunity to be able to bring people back together, because we know that those opportunities to connect with your peers and grab us in the hallway and think through things over a meal or think through things over coffee, we know that that stuff really matters. ours. And so we are so looking forward to the opportunities to connect with all of you at our future opportunities. We look forward to seeing you at those conferences and academies over the summer. And we really thank you for taking 2 hours on your Friday to come together with us to hear about updates and think about how we can all best serve Kansas kids and families and communities together. So thanks to all of you. Enjoy a great weekend, and rock chalk to my Kansas Jayhawks fans. I'll see you downtown on Sunday.